Hi, fifth graders. Today's lesson is 7-3. We're on page 277 in your Envision Volume 1 textbook. Today we're adding fractions with unlike denominators. So yesterday, remember, we found common denominators. And as we mentioned, we need to find common denominators in order to add fractions that have unlike denominators because they need to be equal parts to add them. So the visual learning video that you've already watched went over these examples. How can you add fractions with unlike denominators? Alex's map and the fractions there that you had to get like denominators before you could add them, and that was 6. We are going to do another example here in Solve and Share. So at the end of this lesson, we can add fractions with unlike denominators. Solve and Share. Over the weekend, Eleni ate 1/4 box of cereal and Freddie ate 3/8 of the same box. What portion of the box of cereal did they eat in all? Solve this problem any way you choose. I see this as I'm going to add my fractions to find out what part of the whole they ate all together. In all was my clue. So I look at 3/8 plus 1/4, and I notice that I have different denominators. I have unlike denominators, so I need to make like denominators. I notice that 8 is a multiple of 4, so I don't need to change the 8th, but I do need to change my denominator to 4. So 1/4 times what will give me 8ths as a denominator. 4 times 2 is 8. So remember, whatever you do to the denominator, you must do to the numerator. So we're multiplying by 1 whole, so as not to change how much this fraction is worth, what its value is. We're just getting a common denominator with our 3/8. 1 times 2 is 2. So our equivalent fraction of 1/4 is 2/8. So we are adding 3/8 plus 2/8. We've changed this 1/4 into 8ths. Now we can add these fractions as we've done before by adding the numerators. 3 plus 2 is 5, and the common denominator 8 stays the same. All right, so we've just converted this into 8ths and added like we've done in the past. Common denominator carries across, add the numerators, so they have eaten 5/8 of this box of cereal. All right, we are going to look at another example on page 279. We're going to find 5/12 plus 1/4. 5/12 plus 1/4 is the same as 5/12 plus 3/12. How do we know that? Well, we're going to convert our 1/4 into 12ths. We know that 4 times 3 is 12. That means we need to multiply our numerator times 3 as well. 1 times 3 is 3, and that's where the 3/12 comes in. So we're adding 5/12 plus 3/12. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8/12, or 2/3. Now, how did they get 2/3? Well, if we look at a picture of 8/12, let's see here. We're going to divide this into 12 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We were talking about 8 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we look at this, just our rows, not our columns, we have 1 row, we have 2 rows, and we have a 3rd row. Do you see how 1, 2, this is 2 out of 3 rows? All right, so looking at the picture is one way to do it, but the other way to change this into 2/3 is to divide. This is a whole nother lesson, but 8/12. We find the greatest common factor between these two, and that's 4. I can divide 8 by 4. I can divide 12 by 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And we get an equivalent fraction. These two are equal or equivalent fractions. This is just called simplified. It's in its simplest form. All right, we're not going to do number 1 in the guided practice because that refers to the visual learning video example, which we did not do together. However, we'll do this one. Vocabulary. Rico and Nita solved the same problem. Rico got 6/8 for an answer, and Nita got 3/4. Which answer is correct? Use the term equivalent fraction in your explanation. So we're comparing 6/8 and 3/4. We already know that we can't compare these until they have an equivalent or common denominator because they're different size parts. So we're going to need to change. I noticed that 8 is a multiple of 4. 4 times 2 is 8. That means I need to multiply the numerator times 2 as well. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2, of course, is 8. So that tells me if 3/4 equals 6/8, then 6/8 equals 3/4. They are both correct because they are equivalent or equal fractions. Do you know how? Find the sum. Use the fraction strips to help. Number 3 says 1/2 plus 1/4 equals blank plus blank equals blank. We can't add our fractions because at this moment they don't have a common denominator. We do know that 4 is a multiple of 2, so yes, our common denominator would become 4. So we can keep that all the way across. 1/2 is equal to how many fourths? We can look at our fraction strip model, and we know that 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 1/2. That's 2/4. 1/4 comes over as 1/4. Now we're adding 2 plus 1 is 3. So 1/2 plus 1/4, 1/2 plus 1/4 equals 1, 2, 3/4. Now that was an odd way to do it. You don't have these in front of you all the time. Your examples down here will. But again, when you're converting your fraction 1/2 to fourths, you know that it has to be fourths. Ask yourself, what do you multiply your 2 times to get to 4? 2 times 2. Whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. So we multiply the numerator times 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And that's another way to get your 2/4 if you don't have the fraction strip in front of you. You're going to do number 4 and 5 on 279. And then the assessment practice problems on the back, numbers 10 and 11. And that's it for adding fractions with unlike denominators.